Hey everyone, Chef Ben from St. Burch here in my home kitchen. Today I'm going to be demoing a whole head-on shrimp with Thai curry and fried eggplant. So I apologize in advance if there's any barking dogs or sneaking children or anything like that. So a couple cool things that we're going to be playing with today. So for those of you that got the Burch box, the combo or the seafood specifically, you're going to be getting some of these jumbo head-on Gulf shrimp. So I'll be showing you how to take care of those. And then for this specific dish, a couple interesting ingredients that might not be familiar to the average home cook is, a couple things. So one is galangal. This is like a rhizome. It's very similar to ginger, but it's got like a really amazing aromatics. And you could substitute ginger if you can't find galangal, but this I find at any Asian market. Honestly, you can find it in the freezer section. So I use it frozen. From frozen, you can peel it, chop it up, use it like you would ginger. Same place in the freezer section, I find these beautiful kaffir lime leaves. They kind of look like a wider bay leaf, but again, these are just so aromatic, just pure pungent lime. This is gonna really take this curry up a notch. And then I like to add pickled bird chilies at the end. Totally optional. It's already going to be spicy and delicious enough. But these pickled chilies I get at Chong's Grocery. They're amazing. I add them to almost anything, and it makes it wonderful. So yeah, thanks for joining, and let's get cooking. So one of the first things that I'll have you do is we're going to dice up this eggplant, and we're going to salt it. So what salting does is it starts to draw out the excess moisture, which is really important when you're working with something like eggplant because it can be soggy. So we're gonna dice it up, we're gonna salt it, and we're gonna let it sit for probably about 20 minutes. We'll pat it dry, and then we will fry it up. So I like to cut it into like a pretty large dice. It can be really any size. It's gonna cook down a little bit, so just kind of whatever feels right to you. Just try to get them into relatively similar sized pieces so that they cook evenly. So once you have some diced up eggplant, we're gonna put it onto our paper towel here. And I'm gonna season it somewhat liberally. Just like you were seasoning it if it was for a finished dish. So nice liberal salting. And then again, I'm gonna let this sit for about 20 minutes. And then you'll see all this water coming in the top. Just pat that dry, get it nice and dried off, and then we'll fry it. While we wait for the eggplant to be salted and let the oil come up to temp, I'm gonna show you how to take these head-on shrimp from this to the cleaned version of this. So you can absolutely remove this head here if that's what you'd like. I like to keep it on because it adds a ton of flavor to my broth. I don't eat it necessarily, but you can. It definitely will add a lot to the finished dish. So the first thing you do is look at the shrimp. Here's its back. Here's its little flippers. Turn it onto its belly, or onto its back, I should say, belly facing up. And with my thumb, I just start to press in. And it really just kind of comes away really easy. I'll come all the way down one side, separating the shell. And then I just get my thumb in between the shell and the body and just kind of move it over to the other side. And it just kind of comes right off. Now, if I just pulled, this little flipper would come off as well. I like to keep them on. We like the presentation, especially in the restaurant. Absolutely remove it if it comes off, no big deal. But you can aim to keep that on just by kind of holding it in place and then taking the shell the rest of the way off. So now we have a clean shrimp. So I'll do that again one more time for you. Belly up, press down all the way down. Turn it over. If it doesn't come off in one fell swoop, no big deal. Just like that. All right, I'm over here with the eggplant. My oil's nice and hot. You can maybe see that it's about 353 right now. which is good. That's about the temp I want to be frying at. So I'm actually going to crank it now, so that when I drop this eggplant in there, it doesn't just bring the temperature of the oil down dramatically, which what happens is if it's too low to fry, it ends up being really oily. It kind of gets saturated with oil. So I patted off this eggplant. It's had about 25 minutes to exude its liquid. And I'm going to do probably 2 batches. I'm just going to fry this. Word of advice, people can be intimidated by frying at home. Make sure you have a pan that can fit enough liquid. And you only want to come about halfway up. If you go too much farther, what could happen is it could come up over the top, which is what we're all afraid of. And if you have an open burner underneath, obviously that could lead to a fire. That's hazardous. So I'm going to do about half of this. Keep it cranked so that oil temperature doesn't drop. And then while this is frying, I'm going to grab another container with paper towels on a plate, just so that when we are done frying, we have a place for it to land. This eggplant has been frying for, I don't know, about 2 minutes now. It's looking really nice. It's starting to get a little bit golden brown here. So I like to just test the doneness. This is just a simple cake tester. We use these all the time in the restaurants to determine the doneness of vegetables, fish, meat, etc. And I just take it, poke it through, and it goes through really with almost no resistance. So I know that this eggplant is cooked. I'm just going to kind of let some of that excess oil fall off, and then just put it onto my prepared plate that has some paper towels to kind of absorb any excess moisture. So after this, I'll fry that next batch, and then we will build this curry. All right, we are about ready to put this curry together, but I wanted to take 1 second and talk about a really important concept, one that we talk about in the restaurants all the time, and that's mise en place. So you might have heard the term mise en place before. What it literally means is to put in its place. So in this case, it's to make sure that all of your ingredients are close at hand and fully prepared, ready for cooking, so that you're not scrambling in the middle of the cooking process. That's one of the biggest challenges I think home cooks have, is they don't take the time ahead to make sure that they're ready to cook. They just kind of start going for it. So we've got everything here. I've got my lemongrass, galangal, ginger, garlic, galangal, lemongrass, shallot, all already chopped up. I got my coconut oil, I got my curry paste, kaffir limes, everything's ready to go. So I'm ready to cook. So the first thing we're gonna do is add a couple tablespoons of coconut oil to the pan. It makes a lot of sense because we're using coconut milk in this dish. It reinforces that flavor. If you do not have coconut oil, no big deal. I would use a neutral flavored oil, something like canola or just vegetable oil would be fine. All right, so my oil's in, it's pretty hot. I'm gonna start with my aromatics. We're just gonna start to fry those up. This is when you really want to use your senses. It sounded really hot and loud at first, so to me, it told me that it was maybe just the tiniest bit too hot. So if you noticed, all I did was just pull the pan off the heat, just for a split second, just up. I'm cooking with gas here, so it's really important that you move the pan on and off the heat, and just be really present while you're cooking. That's what we try to teach all of our cooks, is just, does it look right? Does it smell right? If it doesn't, does it look like it's cooking too fast? I mean, it probably is. So use your intuition. So we're gonna fry this up for a second. I'm gonna add just another tiny squirt of oil. I didn't think I had quite enough. And I could tell because I couldn't see any of the oil sizzling next to my ingredients. That was kind of a telltale sign that there's not really quite enough oil to conduct the heat. Next I'm gonna add about a 1/4 cup of green curry paste. This I just bought at the Asian market, fully prepared. You can absolutely make this yourself at home. There's lots of great recipes out there. It just takes more time and more effort. It just all depends on what you want to do and how far you want to go. But same idea. Just gonna kind of keep cooking this. It just kind of wakens up the aromatics, some of that chili heat too, right? It's made of chilies and lemongrass and same ingredients, galangal, garlic. It's all cooked down and processed into a paste. This is really the base of this dish. It's really important that we get all this flavor woken up so that when we add our coconut milk, which is really rich and fatty and luxurious, that kind of just tempers these flavors. It doesn't totally mute them. So you can kind of start to see that there's a little bit of what we call a fond on the bottom of the pan. That's like a little a little bit of stuck on bits. As long as it's not burning, that's good. You know, just use your senses. Because what that does is it concentrates the flavor again more, and then when you deglaze, you just have more and more flavor built up. All right. Next thing we're gonna do is add our coconut milk. All at once. So that was 1 can of coconut milk. It's about 12 ounces. It smells amazing in here. So I'm just gonna kind of stir this all together and then bring this to a low simmer. Once it's simmered, I'm gonna add my kaffir lime and just let that go for, probably about 5 to 10 minutes. Just again, we wanna let the wonderful flavors and aromas just kind of impermeate and infuse into this sauce. So this is one of those things where, you know, if you make it and you let it sit overnight, it gets almost even better. So taste, enjoy, make enough that you can have leftovers tomorrow and compare. So I'm just gonna throw these in. They're kind of like a bay leaf. Once they've simmered in here and they've given up all the flavor, you want to remove them. They're not very pleasant to chew on. So they're not gonna hurt you. They're just tough. So I'm gonna let this simmer for about 10 minutes and then we're gonna add our shrimp. So magic of television, we're gonna fast forward 10 minutes. All right, now it's been about 10 minutes. It's reduced the tiniest bit. It's just at a bare simmer. I'm gonna go ahead and season it with just a little bit of lime juice and a little bit of fish sauce. This is absolutely to taste. Some people are very sensitive to fish sauce. It's very pungent. By itself, it can be overpowering. I would challenge you that if you think you don't like fish sauce, to try it in a dish like this in a small amount. And what it does is it brings this savoriness that you just can't get with salt. And when you put it into a full rich sauce, like a coconut-based curry, it really just makes it sing. So try it. If you really don't like it, use salt. That's no problem. So a couple of dashes of fish sauce. A little bit goes a long way. And then I'm just gonna take these shrimp and just nestle them into the sauce. We're gonna cook them on one side a couple minutes, give them a flip, cook them on the other side. And at that point, we're basically ready to eat. I'm just gonna add my eggplant, and then we'll plate and we'll garnish. I'll show you how I like to plate things in the restaurant. So enjoy, guys. All right, this dish is done, and we're just gonna plate it up. So, I mean, first of all, you can just slop it in a bowl and it tastes every bit as delicious. Serve it over some white rice, some jasmine rice, whatever you want, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. I do that all the time at home. But if you were hosting a dinner party or if you just kind of wanted to play around and mess around, sometimes it's just fun to plate things and make them look a little bit nicer. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just kind of take these shrimp and separate them so I can kind of control where they land. And then I'll use the sauce and a spoon to just kind of garnish around. I mean, that by itself already makes it look a little bit more composed, a little bit nicer. And then, as I mentioned before, I have these little pickled Thai bird chilies that are wonderful. And if you like a little bit of extra heat, these are a great way to add it. They also have, I mean, such a nice acidity. So it's not just all chili heat. It really adds a wonderful dimension. I like to just scatter them around. I mean, don't get too precocious with it. It doesn't really matter where they go. I like to just keep them nice and separate, and so nobody gets blown up with one giant spicy bite. And then this is a Thai basil plant. You should be able to, I found this at Hy-Vee actually, but you can get it at the Asian market. You can find it at Hy-Vee. You can substitute sweet basil too if you'd like. This I would not omit. This really makes the dish to me. And again, if I was just making a big batch of this, I very well might just throw the entirety of the basil in at the very end of the cooking process and let it just steep. It's gonna discolor, it's gonna turn like dark forest green, no big deal. But if you wanted to, you can just kind of save it for the end and garnish heavily with it, and make it just really pop. So however you like to do it, this is how I like to do it. Yeah, have fun with it. I mean, that's the key, right? I mean, if you're having fun and your guests are having fun, the food's delicious, I mean, that's a good time to me. So that's one way to do it. And if you guys want to give this recipe a chance, and let me know, comment if you enjoyed it. If you had any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Thanks a lot, and I really appreciate you guys watching. Enjoy.